Okay, hello there. This is Leon looking crazy on camera. But hey, I'm not here for fashion, so let's just jump right into it. I just want to go over the code that it takes to create a simple moving square. I call this prototyping. It is called prototyping. And let's just jump into it. I'm trying not to be so verbose and loquacious. So first things first, as you see over here, function love.load with the two brackets indicating that we have now created a function called love.load. And this is where we keep all of our variables, x and y axis, health, velocity, speed, or any other variable. Whereas we could just put x equals 100, y equals 100, I have created an array that keeps all the details for the entity known as player. You can define a table or an array or a list of details, attributes, and variables by saying nomenclature equals two curly brackets. Player equals two curly brackets means everything following with player dot something is part of a list of attributes and variables that the entity known as player has. After creating a function, you must close it with an end. And I find it is good practice to go ahead and comment this end. You can do that with two dashes. You see I've done it up here too before my table sets up an array for player that sets the starting x and y axis. It seems obvious, but it's not just for yourself if you forget or if things get complicated and you want to quickly find out what these few lines of code are really for, but it's also that I can give this code to somebody else and they would have an easy time figuring out what's happening. Even though you might consider it obvious from time to time, it's just good practice to comment your work for the benefit of yourself and others who have to collaborate with you. And in that vein, I have commented that this particular end is the end for love load. And I have failed that this is a script I've written about a month and a half ago and didn't put that. This was the end for love update, and this is the end for love.draw. So, and then Control S to save any changes that you make. So moving on from love.load, which is where we contain all of our variables and attributes declared, we go to function love.update. Now the DT stands for delta time. Delta stands for variable. In other words, every computer runs this program at a different speed based on how powerful that machine is or is not. And so the time changes, it varies, which is delta time. And function love update will run everything in between it. And here's the end for the love update. So all of this, every time the program runs, it's already got the variables, then it updates the variables. And the speed that it reads and acts upon this program, that is what that is the time. It's not necessarily DT. DT is variable. On another machine, it might render this project at a different speed, and that's going to affect things in your program that need to be synchronized. It will affect the frame rate and other things. So DT takes into consideration a different speed of different computers, and that it'll update in sync for those machines. I'm not sure if that made sense. I know what I'm talking about. So if we move on, we have here a little space in between these, so it'll be easier to see. It won't be like a giant chunk of text. But I've commented this out. This is the movement code. When the appropriate key is down, +1 to the corresponding axis. And this is an if statement. If, and if you look at love keyboard dot is down D, you can pretty much figure out what that's trying to say. If the D on the keyboard is down, then the x-axis equals the x-axis +1 end. So if D is pushed down, player X is going to just get a +1, and that'll obviously move your character. We do the same thing again. If the A on the keyboard is down, then player X equal player X -1. That'll move the character in the opposite direction. And then we do the same on the Y-axis. If S on the keyboard is down, then Y equals Y +1. Now, we have our end to encapsulate that, and that is going to update our variables. The variables being updated are the X and Y axis. And I'm hoping you can see this over here. Oh, when I click on this window, indeed, using the ASWD keys, I can move up, down, left, and right. And the speed that this thing is moving, that's the speed of our computer. That's that DT working. Maybe on a slower computer, it would be slower. On a faster computer, it would be faster. And using DT should equalize them so it acts the same on all those machines. Now we go to love.draw. And there's only one sentence inside here, one bit of code, and it's love.graphics.rectangle. And here in quotations, the first thing you must define is whether it's a line or whether it is fill. I'm going to change that, Control S to save, and I'm going to press to restart, and there we go. If you take a look at this, it is now filled as opposed to a line. And of course, we can move our rectangle. This rectangle is X and Y axis, as you can see here, player X and player Y. Then after that, 50 by 100. Again, this is the X and the Y, but this time it's defining the shape of the rectangle. There are more arguments that can be added in here, such as opacity, if I remember correctly, angle, but for now, it suits our purposes just to have the minimal amount of code needed to create a simple moving square. It is important to be able to strip down a particular idea and try it out. So let's just say I have a massive game. It's got all kind of things happening, and I want to add a flying bird to this program. When I get some errors in creating that bird, it'll be confusing. Is it because of the code I just wrote, or is it clashing with something else? So what I will do is extract that bird and create a little bird program and see if I can get the minimal amount to get that bird to do what I need it to do without the obfuscation, without confusing it with the massive amount of code you have already built. Now, when the bird works on its own, and then you try to integrate that bird back into your programming, you have a much clearer idea of what's doing what and why. When a clash happens, you'll know at least it's not your bird code. Same goes with moving an object in a sine wave, perhaps, or a blood stain or a knockback or any little concept you want to add into your larger game. You just create a little rectangle and apply that concept to that rectangle first to see if your code is correct. So I believe that's called prototyping, and that's what I would like to show you. And this is the first video, which is how to create a moving rectangle. I hope that I did a good job in explaining this to you. Stay tuned. There'll at least be 2 more videos, and my hair will not be as crazy as this. Thank you.